For 30 years, the story of globalization was a straight red line drawn across the Pacific Ocean. Picture a container ship leaving the port of Los Angeles. It is stacked 10 stories high with empty steel boxes. It sails west for 2 weeks until it hits the smoggy coast of China, Shenzhen, Shanghai, Ningbo. The boxes come back full. They are full of everything. Your iPhone, your sneakers, your toaster, your car parts. If you wanted to know where the 21st century was being built, the answer was simple: China. China was the factory. The West was the mall. That was the deal. Now imagine a different map. Same starting point. An American consumer clicking buy now. But instead of a red line shooting across the ocean, the arrow shoots south. It goes from Detroit to Monterrey, from Dallas to San Luis Potosi, from Phoenix to the Bajío. It moves by truck, not by ship. It takes days, not weeks. The engineers aren't crossing the international date line. They are crossing the Rio Grande. For decades, if you were a Canadian or an American looking at the loss of manufacturing jobs, you thought, we lost them to China. In 2026, that answer is wrong. China is aging. China is slowing. China is becoming a geopolitical rival. So the multinational corporations, the Apples, the Teslas, the Fords, are quietly rewriting the script. They are saying, we will keep selling to North America, but we will build next door. This video is about that quiet rewrite. It is about the rise of a new industrial superpower right on our border, Mexico. But it is also about the tragedy of the country that is being left on the platform while the new train leaves the station, Canada. Today, we are going to look at the demographic arbitrage that makes Mexico unbeatable. We are going to look at the Fortress Americas strategy, and we are going to explain why the Three Amigos Summit is becoming a meeting of two giants and one junior partner. This is Mexico is the new China. 1. The end of the Pacific era. To understand why Mexico matters now, you have to remember what made China unbeatable for so long. From 1980 to 2010, China pulled off the greatest economic magic trick in history. They combined three things that usually don't go together: massive scale, 1 billion people, low wages, pennies on the dollar compared to the West, high competence, incredible infrastructure, ports, and discipline. Western companies looked at that mix and said, move the factory there. It's a no-brainer. For 30 years, this worked. Western consumers got cheap goods. Western central banks got low inflation. Corporate shareholders got fat margins. But every miracle has an expiration date. Underneath the shiny surface of the Chinese economy, 3 cracks started to form. Crack 1, wages rose. As China got richer, the workers demanded more money. That is good for them, but bad for the cheap labor model. Manufacturing in coastal China is now almost as expensive as manufacturing in parts of Eastern Europe. The arbitrage is gone. Crack 2, the demographics. We talked about this in previous videos. China is aging faster than any society in human history. The workforce is shrinking by millions every year. There are fewer young people to stand on the assembly lines. Crack 3, the risk, the trade wars, the pandemics, the spy balloons, the constant threat of a Taiwan blockade. CEOs hate risk. They realized that having their entire supply chain on the other side of a hostile ocean was a suicide pact. So they started looking for a plan B. They asked, where can we make things that is cheap like China used to be, but safe like America is? The answer was hiding in plain sight. 2, the rise of the Aztec. Tiger Mexico has been preparing for this moment for 30 years. While China was building cities, Mexico was quietly building an industrial machine. Let's look at the unbeatable card that Mexico holds: geography. Mexico shares a 3,145-kilometer border with the largest consumer market in the history of the universe, the United States. That border is not just a line on a map, it is a membrane. In the old China model, you had to order your goods 3 months in advance. You had to put them on a ship. You had to pray the Suez Canal didn't get blocked. You had to pay inventory costs while the goods floated on the ocean. In the Mexico model, you put the goods on a truck in Monterrey on Tuesday. They are in a warehouse in Texas on Wednesday. This is just-in-time manufacturing on steroids. This allows for integration that China could never match. An engine block can be cast in Mexico, shipped to Texas for machining, shipped back to Mexico for assembly, and then shipped to Canada for sale. The product crosses the border 3 or 4 times before it is finished. This is not theory. This is already how the North American auto industry works. But now it is expanding to everything else: aerospace, medical devices, electronics, appliances. Mexico boxed cleverly. They signed more free trade agreements than almost any other country. They positioned themselves as the neutral workshop of the world. But geography is useless without capacity. And this brings us to Mexico's second card. 3, the demographic arbitrage. Why capital loves youth. Capital is like water. It flows downhill. And in demographics, downhill means toward youth. Look at the map of the world. Europe is a retirement home. Japan is a retirement home. China is rapidly becoming a retirement home. Canada and the US are aging fast. The median age in Canada is roughly 41. In Germany, it's 45. In Japan, it's 49. Now look at Mexico. The median age is 29. Mexico has a demographic dividend that the rest of the West has lost. They have millions of young people entering the workforce every year. These young people are hungry. They want jobs. They want to buy houses. They want to build a life. And unlike the lying flat generation in China or the quiet quitting generation in Canada, the Mexican workforce is still in the striving phase of development. Furthermore, Mexico has invested heavily in technical education. Cities like Monterrey and the Bajío region, Querétaro, Guanajuato, are churning out engineers, technicians, and skilled tradespeople. When Elon Musk announced the new Tesla Gigafactory, he didn't put it in Ontario. He didn't put it in Ohio. He put it in Monterrey. Why? Because Monterrey is the new Shenzhen. It is a city that buzzes with industrial energy. It has the universities, the suppliers, the logistics, and the labor force all in one place. This is the demographic arbitrage. Global capital is looking at the aging, expensive, tired workforce of the North, and then looking at the young, affordable, energetic workforce of the South. And the capital is voting with its feet. 4. Fortress Americas. The strategy. This shift isn't just happening because of market forces. It is happening because of grand strategy. We talked about Fortress Americas in our Venezuela video. The United States is locking down its own backyard. Washington has decided that it wants to build a self-sufficient industrial bloc. The strategy is called nearshoring, or friendshoring. The idea is simple. We don't trust China anymore. We don't trust Russia. We need to make our essential goods, our chips, our medicine, our car batteries, here, in the neighborhood. In this mental model, the US provides the technology, the capital, and the consumption. Mexico provides the manufacturing and the labor. And Canada? That is the uncomfortable question. In the Fortress Americas strategy, Canada is the raw material supplier. We provide the oil, the gas, the minerals, and the water. We are the attic. Mexico is the workshop. The US is the living room. This is a profound emotion for Canada. For 50 years, Canada thought of itself as a manufacturing nation. We built cars in Ontario. We built planes in Quebec. We thought we were the factory of the North. But we let that muscle atrophy. We got addicted to the oil money, Dutch disease, and the real estate bubble. Now, as the factories come back to North America, they are skipping Canada and going straight to Mexico. 5. The Canadian miss. Why we aren't invited. Why is Canada missing the train? It comes down to 3 structural disadvantages. Disadvantage 1, cost. Canada is expensive. Our wages are high relative to Mexico. Our energy costs are high due to taxes and regulation. Our land costs are astronomical due to the housing bubble. If you are a CEO deciding where to build a billion-dollar factory, you look at the spreadsheet. Mexico, low wages, cheap land, decent energy. Canada, high wages, expensive land, expensive energy. Unless Canada offers massive subsidies, like the billions we are paying Volkswagen and Stellantis to build battery plants, the math doesn't work. We are essentially bribing companies to come here because the organic business case is broken. Disadvantage 2, demographics. Canada has a labor shortage. We are trying to fix it with mass immigration, but as we discussed in the middle-class mirage video, that immigration is fueling a housing crisis, not a manufacturing boom. We are importing people to work at Tim Hortons and drive Ubers. We are not importing the specific industrial workforce needed to compete with Monterrey. Mexico has the organic population growth. They don't need to import people. Their workers are already there, speaking the language integrated into the culture. Disadvantage 3, regulatory friction. In Mexico, if the government wants a factory built, it gets built. The regulations are flexible. In Canada, building anything is a nightmare. Environmental assessments, indigenous consultations, municipal zoning, NIMBY protests. It takes 10 years to build a mine. It takes 5 years to permit a factory. In the fast-moving world of nearshoring, speed is everything. Companies cannot wait 5 years for a permit. They need to be producing now. So Canada is seen as too slow, too expensive, and too complicated. 6. The 3 Amigos. Reality check. Every few years, the leaders of the US, Canada, and Mexico meet for the North American Leaders Summit. They call them the 3 Amigos. They smile for the cameras. They talk about friendship. But look at the body language. Look at the trade flows. In 2023, Mexico surpassed China to become the #1 trading partner of the United States. Read that again. Mexico beat China. Canada used to be #1, then we were #2. Now we are fighting to stay relevant. The economic center of gravity of the continent is shifting south. Texas and Mexico are merging into a massive super region. The trade flowing across the Laredo border crossing is staggering. The integration between Austin, Tech, and Monterrey, manufacturing, is creating a new economic axis. Meanwhile, the trade crossing the Detroit-Windsor Bridge is stagnant. The auto pack days are over. The new auto industry is electric and its heart is beating in the South. This leaves Canada in a precarious position. We are becoming the Old North, a place of resources, banking, and real estate, but devoid of the industrial dynamism that drives real innovation. 7. What this means for the Canadian middle class. Why does this matter to you, the regular Canadian? It matters because manufacturing jobs were the backbone of the middle class. A factory job allowed a high school graduate to buy a house, raise a family, and retire with a pension. It was the gateway to the middle class. As those jobs moved to China, the middle class hollowed out. We were told, don't worry, they will come back. Well, they are coming back to the continent, but they aren't coming back to Oshawa or Windsor. They are going to Saltillo and Hermosillo. This means that the Canadian economy will continue to bifurcate. We will have high-paid professionals, doctors, lawyers, bankers in the cities. We will have low-paid service workers, baristas, drivers, carers, everywhere else. But the middle, the solid, productive, industrial middle, will continue to vanish. This exacerbates the inequality we talked about in the polite Ponzi video. Without a manufacturing base, an economy relies on asset inflation, housing, to feel rich. And asset inflation only helps those who already own assets. 8. The regional divide. This shift also threatens the unity of Canada. Ontario and Quebec are the manufacturing heartland. They rely on the auto industry and aerospace. If those industries slowly migrate south, the economic rationale for central Canada weakens. Meanwhile, Alberta and Saskatchewan resources are still valuable to the US, but they face the Venezuela threat we discussed last time. So you have a resource west that is being squeezed on price and a manufacturing east that is being squeezed on volume. This is a recipe for national stagnation. 9. Can Canada catch the train? Is it too late? Canada cannot compete with Mexico on cheap labor. We shouldn't try. That is a race to the bottom. But we could compete on high-end tech manufacturing, robotics, AI hardware, biotech, value-added resources, processing our own lithium and cobalt instead of shipping it raw. Cheap, clean energy, we have massive hydropower. We could use that to attract energy-intensive industries like AI data centers that Mexico can't support. But to do this, we need a strategy. We need to stop treating our economy like a post-national experiment and start treating it like a competitive enterprise. We need to realize that the Mexicans aren't just making tacos and tequila anymore. They are making the cars of the future. They are building the aerospace components. They are graduating more engineers per capita than we are. They are hungry, and we are comfortable. Conclusion. The view from the platform. Let's go back to the train station metaphor. The Globalization Express has been decommissioned. The new train is the Nearshoring Limited. It is leaving the station. It is loaded with investment capital, new technology, and future prosperity. And Mexico has a first-class ticket. They booked it 30 years ago when they signed NAFTA and started building their industrial base. The United States is driving the train. And Canada? Canada is standing on the platform, holding a barrel of oil and a stack of immigration papers, arguing with the conductor about the carbon tax on the ticket price. We risk becoming the caboose of North America, dragged along by the momentum of our neighbors, but with no control over the direction and no engine of our own. If you are Canadian, look south, not just to Florida for your vacation. Look at what is happening in the factories of the Bajío. That is the sound of a country that wants to win. And if Canada doesn't find that hunger again soon, we are going to find ourselves living in the attic of a very noisy, very busy, and very rich continent, wondering where our share of the wealth went. History doesn't wait for polite nations. It waits for the ones who build. Mexico is building, are we?